This is a surface water use forum. For those of you who attended last board meeting, I think the board give me the directive that we need to do a better job communicating to the MUD, specifically the operators and the board members. Try to maximize utilization of the surface water. So I think this forum is targeted for that. We want to have a direct discussion with you. Sorry, and for those of you who didn't know me, my name is Drew Chan, the General Manager of the authority. At this time, I will turn over to our program manager, Ms. Amber Besson, to give you a little presentation.
Hi, all right. Well, welcome and good evening. It's good to see all of you. Some of you are familiar faces from the board meetings, and good to see you again. Some of you might listen in at home, and now you get to see us in 3D. So, welcome. Appreciate everybody making the time to come here this evening. Our goal here today, we want to spend some time talking with you all and giving you some different bits of information. Then we also want to hear from you. And this is going to be structured a little bit differently than the normal board meeting and how those play out. You'll see the blue comment cards like what we do in the board meeting, but we're doing things a little bit differently this time around. We want to try to get everybody home in time for dinner. We really want to strive for that today. We've got a board meeting on Monday night as well that we welcome anyone who would like to come and speak as far as related to policy type discussion at Monday night's board meeting. That is the time to be talking about as far as thoughts on policy direction. Really here, our goal today is talking with each of you who represent somebody who is connected to surface water. How many of you all are MUD board members? So wow, vast majority, everybody raise their hands. Just want to give context for everybody. Okay, how about operators? Okay, thank you for coming and joining us. How about engineers or attorneys for the MUD? Okay, so vast majority here, and welcome to everybody else who's here. Thank you for joining. So vast majority here, MUD board members. So I want to try to give you all just some background and talk about, I think our plan today on this, we're going to go through the presentation first. And then if you all think of questions as we're going through, you can write them down on these cards. You think about something that, oh, I got a great suggestion that you want to write down on the cards. And what we'd like to do is try to streamline that we can get through as many people's questions and go through these first. After we've done the presentation, we'll go through these first, and then have time for discussion afterwards as well. So we want to try to maximize the time as far as talking with everybody and getting as much people's questions answered that they may have questions, and then really try to dialogue at the end. So in terms of our goals, our goal here for today is to determine how we can maximize surface water deliveries. And I appreciate, we all appreciate each and every one of you being here, because maximizing surface water deliveries impacts all of us. Every single one of us, me, a ratepayer included in North Harris County, it impacts all of us. And so we're first going to talk about the authority's GRP conversion plan. June asked that I give y'all just a background on how the system was originally converted for the original 2010 system versus now the 60% conversion. How about show of hands, how many of you are brand new to the system that just joined online here recently? All right, well, thanks Jerry for showing up. Everybody else, you all have been long-time surface water users, so thank you for your continued usage of surface water. So what you all learned when you all first came on the system might be a little bit different than what's happening now. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about the rate order, and there is copies in the back. I'm going to show a slide that has lots of words on it, and I don't expect anybody to read all the words, but there is a copy of the one section of the rate order that this is the actual current rate order. This excerpt is back on the back table if anybody wants to copy it. It's also available online, the entire rate order is. And then we'll talk about how we can discuss improving our surface water deliveries. So let's first start with a recap of the authority's conversion plan. So for those of you, the majority of you in this room that were all originally connected to the system, you've got a tank up here on this map. This is the original 30% conversion system. And the original vision for this 30% conversion system was to go out to various different muds and spread the love to the different muds. So that you might not have gone to every single water plant that a mud had. And the goal being, let's try to get as many people connected, and let's get everybody using a baseline amount of water. We have 31 mgd of water that we can spread around. And for those of you, long-standing Carlton would come and call and, hey, we're short on water, we need people to only take this much, or we need people to come offline because we only have 31 mgd and a lot of people are using a lot of water. That's how the old system was operating. And the 60% conversion system, where we're all out at today, is a very different system now, and the vision for that, and I wanted to share some of that with you all. So this next picture that you're seeing up here, you can see the original blue. Everything expanding off of it is the 60% conversion system. So this 60% conversion system was mapped out in the 2014 GRP. And the plan for the 60% conversion system was to add additional supply, so we're no longer supply limited, get that supply over to the authority, and then convey it out to a bunch more water plants. But the vision here is a little bit different, and the goal for us now on how we're connecting water plants for the new muds that are getting connected is, so long as it's a significantly sized water plant, we're gonna go to every one of MUD's water plants, instead of only going to one at a time. And we're gonna try to capture as much usage as we can out of that mud, because as you can see, we're starting to get farther and farther away from those pumps. There's more and more pipes. That's how much more that system is gonna cost all of us who are ratepayers here in this room. So whatever we can do to try to be as efficient as possible with the deliveries helps us keep the cost of the capital delivery less, and it also helps us in keeping the pumping cost less, so we're not pumping it all the way out to Hockley to get water out there. So for us, this is the 60% conversion system. And what's interesting, so for the 2014 GRP, and for those of you long-standing 20-year board members, I was chatting with one here. So for those of you long-standing here, as far as with your mud, you may remember the original vision of the plan for the 2014 GRP. And the plan was to convert some people early, and Subsidence District allows you to accumulate credits then, and then use those credits to help us defer some of the capital to later. So it was a strategy to then keep the infrastructure costs, so we weren't getting them all online in 2025. It was deliberate to have some of them done after 2025, and then use our credits in order to, essentially keep us compliant until the projects were all online. So that's where we're at today. So December 1st, 2025 started our date for the 60% conversion mandate. And for those of you who, so this right here is just where we're at right now on the 60% conversion. So of the extra 113 million gallons per day of additional supply that we needed to add, all of that is now online and available. We've got about 48 miles of transmission pipes that's taking water from the city of Houston and bringing it to our pump stations to then deliver it out through our distribution network out to each of your mud plants. So 41 to 48 miles are done with that, between what the city installed and what we installed. We have one of our 2 new pump stations are constructed, the other one's about to go into construction. And then really at the bottom is the heart of how do we get the water out to everybody. So we've got 129 miles of the 263 miles of distribution pipe is in the ground and operational, but we still have a ways to go to finish up the rest of the distribution pipe. And then we have, as of right now, we've got 91 water plants that are connected out of the 152 that are planned for the 60% conversion. So there still is a ways for us to go to get done with the 60% conversion. So this is a chart that gets presented at every single board meeting. For those of you who have been here or have seen it online, this is the conversion chart. The most important thing to look at is all the way on the right side, and you can look at the month of May in the blue. And what you'll see in the blue is how much surface water in million gallons per day was delivered out to everybody who's connected to the system. And so in the month of May, we delivered 36 mgd. And for us, we're always a little bit farther Because everyone reports their groundwater later, so we get that data later. So we are always a month behind on looking at conversion once we have everybody's groundwater data in the system. So if you look for the month of April, we're at 38% converted. So 38% converted is not 60% converted, which is where we need to be. So for us, it's super important for us to be maximizing whatever we can on surface water utilization, which is where we really need everybody's help here. To try to push as much as we can on the surface water side as opposed to the groundwater side for those who are capable of doing that. So as far as being 38% converted, you might then ask the question, well, where do we stand on credits? And this is a graphic that there was an analysis that we had done last summer. So this is from last summer, but it still is the same concept to show you all. So this is, I'm gonna walk you through a couple of things on this graphic. What this graphic is showing us is how much alternative water is required of us, how much did we deliver, and then how many credits did we accumulate. So if we deliver more alternative water than what we're required to deliver, we get to bank credits from Subsidence District every year. And so the teal, Carolina blue color that's on the left side of that graphic, that's solid there, that is how much alternative water was required of us. The orange line is how much we actually delivered. So every time the orange line is above that teal blue color, the yellow line, which is the credits, goes up. So you can see we were able to accumulate quite a bit of credits until we hit about 21, 22, and for a variety of different reasons that we did not achieve what our target was for even the 30%, we had to use some of our banked credits. And so where we're at right now, talking about our 2025-2026 permit year. So as I said, December 1st is when Subsidence District starts for us, our permit year, and then it ends on November 30th. So December 1st is when it started for us to have to be at 60% converted. So we're forecasting right now that the authority as a whole is close to 6 billion gallons short of the 60% conversion. And what directly relates to that is how quickly can we acquire parcels to get pipes in the ground? How quickly can we get things permitted? How quickly can we get our funding partner to approve everything that's happening? So how quickly can we execute projects and work with all these third parties to get their portion of the projects done as quickly as possible? But what also contributes to that is how much surface water is everybody utilizing. And for planning purposes, what we've looked at, and whether this is not site specific, but by and large, we have looked at some folks that are fully converted to surface water. And it appears like getting to a 98% usage is achievable. For not everybody, but for a lot of people. That gives enough wiggle room to still go and use wells if you need to do a free burn for some reason, different maintenance activities that are needed. So for planning purposes, some people are using 100%. Some people are using a little bit less, and there might be a reason why some folks need to be a little bit less converted. So, but for planning purposes, this analysis and what we turned into Subsidence District for this year, saying that we think we're going to be 6 billion gallons short, assume that surface water folks are going to be using 98% of their water usage as surface water. Now that's if you're fully converted. So the next thing, the one thing to point out here is if we didn't have the credits in hand for that 6 billion gallon shortfall, the disincentive fee that would have been due to the Subsidence District when they gave it to me on the permit worksheet is $72 million. So that was for 1 year. We are at the 60% conversion. All those pipes and water plants that still need to get connected on that slide, a couple slides back that you saw, I forecast we're not going to be done with that until partway through 2030. So 2031 permit year is when it will be fully up and running. So that still is a ways to go for us to get done and not be fully 60% converted. So what you see on the right side of this graphic, so you see the dotted orange line, which is a forecast based off of projects getting done, based off of how much surface water utilization everybody who's connected is gonna be utilizing. And then you see two other, kind of a light blue and a dark blue, solid shapes there. So the light blue and the dark blue, they're on the right side. What those are two different potential futures for what water demand could look like. Because we can't predict the weather, we can't predict growth, and those two impact what our total water demands are for our system. So we run it with one with an average demand and one with a higher demand, which might represent a drought or might represent higher growth that might happen. And based off of that, if we look at, blue versus orange in here, and I see some people standing in the back, there's some seats up in the front, if you want to come up here. So based off of the blue and the orange that are there on the right-hand side, gives you that yellow, what I've termed the cone of uncertainty, the hurricane forecast that we're looking at. So this cone of uncertainty here is, if we are on the top end of that yellow, well, that's if weather's average and growth is average and folks all use water the way we're planning. And if we're not, then we are going to run out of credits and have the bottom end scenario, which is Director Barber coined this the scary chart. So, and it's right to be concerned about what that potentially may look like in the future. So that top inflection point across the zero marker there is in 2029, and based off of last year's disincentive fee rate, it was a penalty of about $10 million. The bottom here, you run out of credits next year, and the penalty is $250 million in disincentive fees, unless there's additional credits that are obtained. So there's a lot that goes into this, but this is really the heart of the why we all are wanting to work with you all, and this is where you all have a direct impact on one little nugget of what's in here, is how much surface water that we're getting out the door to everybody. So next thing we have up here, and this is why I printed it out in case anybody wanted to read it, but I'm not going to go through it line by line. This is what's in the current rate order for use of water. And I'll highlight just some of the key aspects for everybody that's in here. First thing is it states is that all converted entities must use only authority water. And then it follows right up by saying, but if the authority is unable to supply it, then you may operate your wells. This is the exact mode that we were in with that 2010 system, that we only had 31 MGD. That's why Carlton would call up the operators and say, hey, I need you all to ratchet down because I don't have enough water to go around. We're now to a mode that we have all the surface water that we could need for right now for who's connected to the system. So at this point in time, unless there's an unforeseen condition, and they do happen from time to time, happens to all of us from time to time, then the supply is there and available for us. This part of the rate order also states that the converted entities shall coordinate with the authority and operate their systems to maximize authority water. And it does already have a provision in here in terms of exercising your wells to maintain operability. And that's something that with prior notice to the authority's operator, is what the rate order says, that you are able to do. Everybody wants you to operate your wells. You need to operate your wells. And especially for this last provision here, the authority absolutely recognizes that there are times when people need to take necessary steps to respond for a life safety emergency. And so maintaining wells in order to be able to do that, 100% makes sense. But this is really the ground rules that already are in existence for the authority's rate order with everybody who is a converted entity. So with that, I want to just talk a little bit. You might have heard us at some of the previous board meetings talking about the surface water utilization and talking about, we went through an analysis to look at those who are connected to surface water and how much they are using surface water versus groundwater. And so we've got kind of two terms. They're informal terms, they're not in the rate order, they're just terms that I made up. So if you hear me say the word fully connected or partially connected, or fully or partially served, somebody who's fully served, we're connected to all your water lines. Somebody who's partially served, you might have plants and we only go to 2 of them or 1 of them. And to me, those are 2 totally different situations. Somebody who's partially served, we can't go to all of your water plants right now. And then maybe you're in the plan in the future, but that'd be hard, for me, working with you all to maximize surface water. I understand that you can't hydraulically go to every aspect of your service area. It might not even be a single plane. They might not be hydraulically connected. But let's first talk about the MUDs that are fully connected. And so these are the folks who every single water plant of theirs is connected to the system. And this is for the month of May, what I'm about to show you. And what I'm about to show you, I will leave all the tanks blue of the people who are partially converted. For the folks who are using 98% or more surface water in the month of May, I changed you to green. Yay, good job. For the folks who are using between 95 and 98% surface water in the month of May, I turned it to yellow just as okay, maybe this was just something that's going on, something to watch. For the folks who are using less than 95% surface water, this is where I'm now going to ask, okay, so what's going on exactly? Is there a reason you can't get up higher? Or is it just something that perhaps you haven't had a session like this to talk through that we're no longer operating in the same way that the 2010 system used to operate and limiting water, and that we have plenty of water to go around and we want everybody to use the surface water and not the groundwater. I did not put names on anywhere, but there are 10 locations, so hopefully you can pick yourself out. Anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, you all get your bills though, and you should be able to calculate what this is, and your operator is hopefully reporting it to you each month. So of the folks up here, we've got 91 water plants that are from 72 different MUDs. So up next, sorry, I'm getting to my numbers. Director Ramsey likes numbers. So of what you see up here, I've got 31 different MUDs that are in the green. I've got 6 different MUDs that are in the yellow. Anybody here represents any of those? It'd be great to talk to you just to understand if you have any system limitations or not. And then I've got 14 different MUDs that are in the red. And so this is one that moving forward, we've definitely got to have some more communication and understand what's going on, why is this happening? Was it just something was going on with the system? And okay, we understand that. We can figure that out. If not, we need to figure out how to get those folks in the red up into the yellow or the green. And so this is the fully connected MUDs. Talking about a partially connected MUD, I'm going to show data, but I'm not going to say who this is, so I'm just going to show some numbers up here. And this is, we pulled the last, whatever that is, I don't know, 12, 18 months, so of data from this MUD, looking at, now not all of their water plants are connected, so they're going to have groundwater usage. But for this MUD, it shows groundwater usage, surface water usage, and then the percent of each one. And for me, I look at this and I kind of hone in on this number right here in December. So in December of 2024, this MUD was able to get 13,000 kilogallons, or 13 million gallons out into the system of surface water. But when we look at last month's data, well, last month they could only get 7 million gallons out into the system. Well, why? And how do we get back to, we need to get to where we were pumping 13 million of surface water out into the system. Because that's a lost opportunity right there, that the system seems like it's hydraulically capable of doing this. And this just may be an engineering assumption. I'm not the operator by any means and don't understand all the operational limitations. And that's where we want to open up the dialogue to talk about these kinds of things with you all. So that we can try to see where can we all work to get this so that the folks who are partially connected are using as much as they can, and that the folks that are fully connected are utilizing surface water predominantly and only using groundwater in backup services. So we do have some plans to try to work with you all. I think a lot of what needs to happen to help you all is just improving the communications, the dialogue between everybody. One of the things that we're planning to do, most of you probably already had AMI implemented at your water well, and those are the smart meters for anybody. So we've already implemented it at the water wells. We have not yet hooked it up to the smart billing system yet. We are converting a second round of wells as well. to make sure we get all of the wells into AMI. But what we're also doing is we're going to be expanding AMI called surface water meters. So this way, Jared and I were talking about this earlier, I can't see his groundwater usage and he can't see my surface water usage. So that would help if we could both see what's going on and see it simultaneously. And as soon as we've got the surface water meters in AMI, we'll be launching the Ion Water platform. I don't know if any of y'all use that for your residents. I know my mud has it for my residents. I know 386, if anybody's in here for 386, thank you. But it's great. I look at my personal water usage at home all the time. And so we're gonna launch that so that anybody related to the district, if it's the district operator, the engineer, board members, whomever, wanna have access to the district's data, we can provide access through Ion Water to your data. We also definitely want to have a lot more routine coordination with our operators on groundwater usage. We need to have better dialogue on what's going on and understanding if the operator needs to use groundwater, we need to understand the why behind it and what's going on. If a plant's down, if there's a reason that you need to be offline, running no wells for whatever the period might be. I think we need to have that communication between everybody. And until we get AMI implemented, and even after it's probably beneficial for us as well, I want to try to also be providing reports to you all so that you all can see this and see what I'm seeing, so that we can all be on the same page as far as surface water utilization until that AMI is implemented. And you all may be getting those reports from your operators or from your mud engineer when they do the reports to the board. But some of you may not. So I want to make sure that I'm trying to give the best information available to everybody so that we all are at least on the same page where everybody's at. I wanted to throw up here for you all, if any of you want to know whether you were in the green, the yellow, or the red, and weren't sure, or if you want to, and if you are in the yellow or the red, and let's open up that dialogue. We have direct email to lots of people, but I also want to throw this up here. There's a generic program email that lots of people monitor, and reach out anytime if you want to coordinate through there. That's just NHCRWA program at Barolo.com, so that's up there for you all. And I guess with that, so I'm sure some folks might have some questions, so if you want to write your questions on your card, and then I think we're going to have one of our surface water users talk for a minute, and then we'll go get into questions, and then we'll open it up broader.
Thank you, Ann. So, yeah, if you have questions, please submit. We have folks down there who will bring to us, and we will respond to those. And we also will have a time for you to ask questions, make comments, and this is a forum. That's why we call it a forum. We want to have interactions. The purpose of this forum is really asking for your help to help us to maximize the use of surface water so that we can lower our rate, lower our cost, and avoid paying this incentive. And also invited a guest speaker who has long-time experience running the plants. He's the general manager of Freshwater Supply District 61, and you probably know him. He's also with the AWB and Water User Coalition. Mr. Jerry Holman, and his district recently converted, and he's been the green district ever since. And so I would like him to share some of his experience. And Jerry, the floor is yours.
What a great crowd. Glad everybody made it. Thank you to the authority for having this meeting. It'll be very productive. I appreciate you inviting me as well. Again, my name is Jerry Holman. I'm the general manager of the Harris County Freshwater Supply District 61. I have a AA certification in water and wastewater 45 years experience and environmental management. I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about District 61. We have 8,500 connections. We're a large district, a little over 20,000 in population. We pump anywhere from 700 to 850 million gallons a year. The range, and I think this is interesting because we've been at 850 or so and 700. That's the 15%, 20% swing. And that's a drought year versus a wet year. So you can see a 20% swing, depending on the weather. It matters a lot. We have four water plants and 2 elevated towers. 5 wells, and those wells range anywhere from 1,000 gallons per minute to 1,800 gallons per minute. Interesting, when our 4 plants were hooked up to by the authority, we had 3 general contractors. That was tough. I think maybe in the future, if you're going to work with one district, you might try to have 1 general contractor. But we made it through it. We dealt with a lot of different subs, and it was an experience. So we were 6 months behind on receiving some surface water than when it was projected. For numerous reasons, it was difficult. Some of the contractors were running a little bit behind. We wanted to get all of our plants online at the same time. We felt that was very important to our system to avoid problems and try to just make the switch over as painless as possible. We had a town hall. We sent out newsletters to our customers throughout this 6-month period to make sure, and also on our bills, just reminding people we were going to convert to surface water, and answered a lot of questions there at our office. So we have 4 clay valves that feed each one of our water plants. And I'm going to talk some technical stuff where some of you maybe can understand how this works. Some of y'all might already know, so kind of bear with me here. But there's a lot of settings that have to be set as this construction and these plants come online. An example might be this clay valve. A clay valve is a mechanical valve that receives a signal from the ground storage tank to a PLC that tells this clay valve to open up and feed surface water to your ground storage tanks. Now you might have 1, you might have 2, you might have 1 water plant where we have 4. I want to caveat by saying that everybody's situation is different and not one fits all. So I'm kind of giving you a generalized of how our system works. Most everybody else's works similar, but maybe in a smaller scale. So back to the clay valves. As they open up, they're setting how much water is going to come through this clay valve and feed into your storage tank. The average setting is maybe 1,500 gallons per minute. Is that about right? And that might depend on what segment of line that's feeding you and how much water they have available as well. So that 1,500 gallons of water coming from the surface water is filling up your ground storage tanks right there at that particular plant. I want to kind of give you an example of how that might work. At one of our plants, we have two tanks. Each one of them are right at 250,000 gallons is what they hold. And they're 24 feet high. So when you do your settings, you have a transducer that's coming off that's feeding a signal where they kind of know what the level is. And you get a readout on that. For us, on our well settings, inside the plant itself, and then also for Infomark, the operator, for the authority, we'll have separate transducers taking separate readings. So 24 foot high on a ground storage tank. Well, you have an overflow at 22 feet. So that's 2 feet that you can't use. So we have it set up to where the off point for both the wells and the clay valve is at 21 feet. Overflows at 22. The clay valve actually comes on at 17 feet. So that's 4 feet of freeboard between the 21 where it turns off and the 17 that it comes on. If for some reason the demand is higher than the 100 gallons per minute that the clay valve is letting into the tank, that level will continue to drop. We have our well set up at 15 feet. That's 2 feet lower than the 17. The well will then come on and will help the clay valve fill the tank back up to the 21-foot mark where both of them will shut off. That's the possibility. The hope is that you don't have enough demand to get past the 17-foot mark where the clay valve opens up and just fills back to 21. That's what we've been experiencing for the most part. So our clay valve is operating like it's supposed to. We've had a few little problems here and there, and you might as well. It's mechanical, it's instrumentation, it's electrical. There can be issues that come up. In Cypress, where we're at, we have a lot of electrical glitches. You might where you're at too. And that tends to give instrumentation and PLCs problems. And we've had that happen a few times where the clay valve would not open. The good news is we had our well available, and when it hit 15, our well came on and pumped us back up to 21. We realized that we had well usage the very next day and said, oh, something's wrong. We got with Empermar, they came out and reset, and then we were back in business. So you might have possibilities of different things happening such as that. We want to keep our wells active and running. And there's some discussion about how to do that, and I heard someone tell me the other day that a well guy had talked about running the well for a couple of hours each month. And running it for a couple of hours, and that would clear it up. We tested our wells just the other day, and they had set for about a month and a half or so. And we went ahead and opened up the drains. We didn't want to put that into our tanks, and did all the valving necessary to do that. We've seen red water and some black water for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then it cleared up. That was kind of our experience. Keep in mind, every situation's a little bit different depending on where you're located. But we are leaning towards potentially running our wells every week for about 10 or 15 minutes. And the reason that is because your well motor, your well itself is mechanical, electrical. We have all types of starters and relays, chemical feed systems and solenoids. We think that if we run that on a regular basis for a shorter period of time, then at least we're running it and we've got everything exercised as part of it. So our plan is to run our wells weekly for a shorter duration to make sure everything is functioning right. In addition to that, that water won't have a lot of red water in it or black, so we'll pump that directly into our tanks and not have wasted water. The more frequently that you run it, you can do that. Now, every situation is different. So well exercise is very critical. If you do not run your wells, you will have problems, whether it's electrical or mechanical or what have you. Just to kind of give you an idea, there was a question that kind of came up in a board meeting a couple of times. So if we're pumping 1,500 gallons per minute or so, and we run it for 10 minutes, that's 15,000 gallons on that well for that week. So you can calculate how much that might equate to in a month, depending on how many wells you might have, and whether or not you can still meet that criteria. Keep in mind, there's gotta be some considerations, and I think Amber mentioned that, whether that PLC goes down and that clay valve doesn't open up. I think if you're just doing your normal exercises, you're okay. you'll establish a pattern and everybody will be okay. But if you have something that goes wrong, where you have to run your well, and that could be a number of different things, you need to be prepared, and I think good communication at that point. But if you don't have an emergency, we're using as much surface water as we possibly can. Why wouldn't we? We've invested billions of dollars. I know our district has spent somewhere close to $60–70 million throughout this 26 years, of which we just got surface water 3 months ago. Also, pleasantly surprising. I doubt I've had 5 complaints in the 3 months that we've been on surface. I thought we would have had a lot more. I'm pleasantly surprised. It's been very good.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Melissa's in my district, she can tell you, it's a different taste. It's a little different, but it's not bad. And I think some people like it. It's a lot softer for us, where we have lots of calcium in our water. It's always on your fixtures and so forth. But the taste just takes a little bit of getting used to. We really haven't had a lot of, again, I can't think of 5 complaints that we've had, and we were able to talk to our customers. They were really just kind of questions, or related to something else, and not the surface water per se. So that's pretty outstanding, to be on groundwater for 50+ years and all of a sudden convert and not have just a ton of complaints. Now that could change tomorrow, Jerry. We hope not. I will say that I think the new plant is doing a great job. I had talked to a lot of the folks that had converted early in 2010, and you guys experienced a lot, maybe some additional problems than what we're seeing right now. This particular surface water plant is really kind of taking care of the taste and odor. They've got their pH and alkalinity right. We're just not seeing a lot of problems right now, and I'm very happy about that. And hopefully you guys have noticed the difference yourself if you've been on surface water for that long. Let me look at my notes here. Don't want to leave anything out. For the operators in the room, this was something that required when we were meeting with these contractors and going through and putting our settings in and making sure everything was functioning like it's supposed to, you needed a Class A operator there. You needed someone who had 30, 40 years experience. This is not something that you just go and do. You gotta know what you're doing. There's a check system there. You're working with your engineer, and maybe you're not utilizing your system to its fullest potential by how you have your settings. Maybe you are. It's worth going back and double checking. I consider myself very good at what I do. And we were scratching our head a few times as well. And I have a great team, and we worked on it hard, and we learned some things as well. So, we're gonna continue to use as much surface water as we can. We are going to continue to run our wells and make sure that they're ready at a moment's notice. And we look forward to continuing a good relationship with the authority. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. Do we have questions?
Yeah, if there's folks that have questions that are already ready to go to get us started, I know some folks in the back of the room are gonna come and pick them up, and we'll get started with some of those. And then we can open up the broader discussion after that. And if you already used your card and want another card, you can raise your hand. You have as many cards as you want.
For the sake of time, while we're able to sort out the questions, does anybody have questions you want to, or comments you want to make? Please come forward. If you have a question, wait until she answers. If you have a comment, please come forward. If not, we'll have.
We know some of y'all are opinionated, so come on.
You think?
Why not?
Okay, we have the first question.
I'm not sure what I had. If I did comment on your question, I was directly here by the utility district.
Okay, okay.
Here, I don't know if they.
Wrong place.
It is, but if, I don't know what district you are, but if you all operate the storm drain in his neighborhood, so precinct 3 is where, do you know what utility district area it is, or you're for precinct 3? Anybody from Emerald Forest wanna talk to the show?
I can help you. So, precinct 3 has a customer, you can go to their website and you can fill out a request or a
Service request.
report some kind of problem, and they will communicate with you. If it's storm sewer, more than likely it's precinct.
Yeah, it's also that.
Yeah.
I think if we've been in education, I was wondering if this is a meeting, further into detail.
No, we have surface water provider. Thank you.
So thank you for coming.
Just a quick question and comment. Number one, where's the 2% come from? And we've been monitoring our percentage every month now for this is our third year. And we're in a low usage period right now, we're like 8 inches ahead of rain. And we have not gotten below 3%. Can't do it. And we're operating our well every week, just a little bit. The district I came out of 20 years, they have an arsenic issue. During low usage months, they're at 20%. And that's just to keep the water. So I think the 2% number, maybe some discussion would be had.
And it's fair, and I think everybody here, and I wanna reiterate it for everyone, the 2% number was just based off of looking at, here's some MUDs, and what does it look like it's achievable for based on looking at some MUDs. There's probably some who have examples why. We wanna understand that, if 3% is what's good for your MUD, I think that that's what we're looking at, that's what we're targeting, and I wanna plug that into my model for the chart, because it may mean, okay, maybe we need to convert, you know, if your MUD can't get to 98, another one can only get to 90, and another one can only get to 85, well, we may have to add another MUD into the mix for the 60% conversion or 80% conversion. It's more pipes and get another plant out there.
I just like this a whole lot better where there is conversation, not just, well, it needs to be 2%, and then we're gonna start charging you past that.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a dialogue to understand. For my purposes, I wanna make sure that we're putting the right projects in place to get the 60% conversion, the 80% conversion, and the assumptions we're making about all of your districts weigh into that. So we want to work with you all to make sure that we're using the right assumptions in that. And can we do better? Let's try, and is there something that Jerry and I were talking about updating, whether it's programming or signals back and forth? Maybe there's something to tweak to help each other out. Or maybe it is just, we need to realign expectations and then build that back into the plan for the conversion and say, all right, maybe instead of getting to 152 water plants, I gotta get to 153. And then somebody's building a water plant too, they make it into 60% conversion, as I'm pointing over.
Don't worry, I asked a question.
Okay, so, there was a question in here in terms of, kind of a related question about, districts being able to exercise wells without being fined. And I'm not, the focus today is on the surface water conversion, and if folks on the board want to comment on this, I think that could be a comment from a policy perspective, but here, the current rate order does not fine you for exercising your wells. And it is explicitly listed in the current rate order that if you need to exercise your wells, you should do so.
Please.
Behind the column, okay, yeah.
You can just speak.
So, I don't know if I'm putting this right. My name is Mark Simon with Funky Belly Mine. What would be kind of the window for exercising a well? Or is it very specific to each well? Meaning, you said once a week for 10 minutes. Is that very specific to one well, or is that like a hard, fast rule for all wells?
No, I think it depends on the well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, very much depends on the well, the age of the well, the water quality, the specific aquifer the well draw water from. It's definitely very different.
You probably want to get with your operator and your engineer.
It's Scott.
Yeah. Maybe what they're doing is right on, maybe they can reduce that, or maybe they need to increase.
And then Scott can let me know what you all need, and if it's more than 2%, let's have dialogue about that. So there's a question, Bill, I even answered it in here. So, one of our districts, from Bill, was asking about what's the plan for getting those other water plants connected. So for those of you that are part of the 2010 system, you may be asking that. And so right now, there is all of the 60% conversion was previously mapped out, and essentially we look at what are the cost effectiveness metrics to get to everybody. And so in terms of adding in other water plants, we've already identified for the 80% conversion, the very next, and your plant's on there for the 80% conversion, so the very next, we dubbed it the infill projects. We've talked about it before at some of these past board meetings and looking at, maybe there's a reason to expedite some of these infill projects. If there's a MUD who wants the infill project expedited and wants to kick in some of the funding towards it, come talk to me. So we've got another question on here. So about the economic impact on the district's customers as you're increasing the amount of surface water that you take. So in theory, you slide this swimming into Cindy's lane, and since Cindy isn't here, she's back in the back hiding. So in terms of the economic impact, there is a current rate structure that groundwater usage is not charged as much as surface water usage, and the disparity between them being about 40 cents, 45 cents, so 45 cents between them to offset the cost for pumping and running and maintaining those wells. So in theory, that should be the same price, whether you're using surface water, I see Cindy peeking her head around, or groundwater. In terms of the folks, everybody in this room, all of our rates, if we're to a point of having disincentive fees and eating more into our credits because we aren't utilizing as much surface water as possible, that impacts everyone's rates at the end of the day. So it behooves us to try to get as much surface water out to everybody as we can, or realign our expectations. Let's add another MUD in so that we can make sure, let's get them in the queue, somebody who's an infill that we can pop off the existing system and get them connected in advance of the 80% conversion. Yeah.
So keep in mind, your wells are your biggest energy users. They're 100 horsepower, 200 horsepower, 300 horsepower. They are big users of electricity. And that's where your expense will come from. Depending on what your rate is, obviously, if you locked in years back, you're probably setting pretty good, but electricity costs have been going up. I'm not sure that 45 cents is enough, quite frankly. You add chemical feed to that, and all of a sudden, you're spending more money on your groundwater than you are on surface water.
More reason for you to maximize the use of surface. Any more questions?
We still have more, yes.
Okay. Trying to get everybody back to Jim.
Oh, We have a data center, question. Hot topic. Conversations around limiting data centers, and, these data centers may be using water and eating into our credit stock. Yeah, can you MUDs limit the data centers that are coming into your area so that they aren't part of our GRP? I mean, that's really the bottom line, is that I don't know if you all have the ability to say, no, we're not gonna supply you water. For us, it's generally, they're going to one of you all to get water. Now, if they went and got a well application and went to the science district and asked for a well, that would get routed to us. That is something that we would see. Otherwise, we don't see anything. So when everybody asks about what's going on Cutton and Server Farm, is that what it's called? Yeah, and what other, Server Farm? I don't know where they're getting their water from.
It's my understanding that's not gonna be a big water consumption issue there.
Yeah, and that's a very valid point. So on data centers, a lot of people are built up around how much water is going to be used by them. And if they aren't using, depends on what cooling technology that they're using as to just the amount of water. And a lot of them do recognize that there is water scarcity and do closed loop systems or use alternate air cooling, whatnot, that they have alternate methods of doing cooling than just let's pump water out and chill the water.
I would encourage you to talk to your district attorney. If something is inside your district, it's very difficult to say no unless you don't have the existing capacity. You gotta be very careful when you walk that line. If they're outside your district, you don't have to answer.
I think part of that too, as far as the data center, is because it also affects water quality, right? Because I looked at the most recent water quality report, and it had low levels of cyanide, arsenic, and others, right? Now, when you add those data centers into it, now what do we receive, right? So how do we get ahead of that? So that's the piece that we should, I think this board should be looking at as well. It's not just the mine, because yes, there may data centers within the respective mines, but okay, hey, the water that we're mandated to actually use is coming from this board.
Well, I would counter on that one. How many of you MUDs have wastewater plants? So if they're discharging, which then there would be a risk of something coming out, if they have a closed loop system that might fail and might discharge, then there could be a concern that, hey, it might go into their floor drain, so whatever it is they're using as their chiller, and there could be something, that industrial that's coming out that doesn't meet a pre-treatment standard. So definitely looking at that, all the MUDs, I think it's a suggestion too to all the MUDs, looking at what that might look like if you have a data center that's going to send wastewater to you. Is there a potential for cross contact that they could discharge whatever they're using inside the loop into your system?
We're the suppliers, so our water quality would not be affected by who is the user. So it's the mud district actually have to deal with that after the use, their water and discharge. Do we have any more questions?
We had some questions on folks that wanted copies of the slides. Come see me, you can get copies to anybody if you give me your email. I have an email address of this person on here, so. No problem. Anybody else? Do we have any other cards that folks wanna do? Or folks that just wanna ask a question?
I'll move to the next one.
We got a couple of hands.
I'll scan the room.
Jude was ready.
Okay, so you said that you're down to 60%.
Sorry, before you continue, may I ask you a favor? When you speak, tell us your name and who you represent.
I'm Wayne Miss.
Thank you.
We've been trying to get our second plan on for 4 years now. So when is the 80% plan going to be implemented?
Great question. So the current deadline for the 80% conversion is 2035. And so the intent would be to have everything, because we're going to lose all of our credits by the time we're done with getting the 60% conversion. The intent is we need to be getting the 80% conversion online by whatever that deadline is. So right now, if I were mapping out when would that happen, it's an easy infill project for yours specifically, not everybody else's. But then in terms of going out to the, getting out to you, it might be something that, if I'm just mapping it out in the plan, might be in 2033, 2034 timeframe as to when it would come online. That's loosely in my head when I think. Yes, sir.
Bruce Cone, Northwest West Side. This is more of a comment. When we first started trying to get the surface water, mixing it with groundwater was hell. Right now, we have two of our 5 plants, we're using surface water. The others, we're using groundwater. They have been very successful in mixing it. So if you get 100% surface water, you're fine. You have to mix them with the problem. Does anybody else experience that problem? Is there solutions?
So far, mixing small amounts of groundwater in with surface water in our tanks, we have not had any issue. I was very concerned about trying to mix in the distribution system. That's why I wanted all of my tanks or water plants to go to surface water at the same time. Mixing in the ground storage tank is much better than trying to mix in the distribution system, where you have one water plant's doing groundwater and the other water plant's doing surface water, and it's mixing in the distribution system. Unless you isolate each setup, and that's difficult to do for capacity requirements and so forth. So we've been pretty successful thus far.
Yeah, we've got it under control now. Fingers crossed. If we get enough surface water to take another plant at one time, it's fine. But if we have to come to a mixing situation again, we could run into problems.
We're getting to your plan.
Yeah,
We'll
two of
have
your plants
all
are on
surface
deck.
water, And then we'll have all the surface water you need. The limitation on surface water supply no longer exists. So you will have all the surface water you need. You don't have ever worry about mixing.
Once we get all your plants connected.
Right.
So, the good news is, we just advertised a couple weeks ago, project 37A that's going to one of your plants. So, we're getting closer to adding more plants in.
Right.
I saw one more card.
There's one more card. This is a really good question, actually. In terms of TCQ only recognizes wells for system capacity, and surface water is considered supplemental. The person's asking about water supply contracts, and the authority does do water supply contracts, and that's something that the water supply contracts, that there are folks in this room that have them. And you've got an average day demand, and this is what you normally use. There are several entities in this room that do have water supply contracts for average day demand. It's not for peak hour demand to be your only water supply, but for your average day demand to do a contract like that, that's something that the authority has entertained doing in the past. And Judge Evans here is who to reach out to if anybody's interested in a water supply contract.
Surface water supply, that's why it counts as your system capacity to satisfy the CEQ requirement. And if you need or sort of help to work with the TCEQ to help you verify that, we would be happy to. Any other questions? Not, I'm gonna move to the next. Please, go ahead. Yeah.
My name is Ryan Schiller, I'm with the engineering, and I'm also the district engineer for Belmont High and Bridgestone Municipal Utility District. Both of my districts at the moment cannot receive 100% surface water from the authority. We're not fully connected systems. The way this rule reads, if I'm understanding it correctly, is we have to coordinate with you all to make sure that we operate with the maximum amount of surface water possible in our system. What does that mean? So I can tell our board sufficiently. Like daily communication? Are you monitoring our system? Or an approved plan that's operated annually?
All great questions, Ryan, let's talk. We've already been talking now. And for those board members here, Ryan has been talking to us about lots of different things, so he's been very proactive. I think, to me, it's making sure that we understand how can we maximize, and we've talked a lot on Bridgestone about if we deliver more water to other water plants, can we get more water out the door? I think it's just having open communication so that we understand what are your system limitations, and then as things change, you know, as far as Infomark folks, working with the operations team, what can we do, all of us together, and whether it is that we have to come up with something that improves on the engineering side, or improves the transparency on the data, or improves the communications, or whatever it might be, whatever we can do to help you get the most amount of water out the door, that's what we're here to do as well. So we want to work with you on it. I don't think there's any formal structure to it, but I do think that we need to have more structure than we currently have in terms of improving the communications. I think we were very closely communicating when the system was new, and then we were on the same, folks on the 2010 system, everybody had it dialed in. The operators had it dialed in, this is exactly what we need to do. In August, this is who takes water, who drops off the system, and it was very well dialed in. And I think now, because more users have come on and more supplies on, we need to do that again and figure out how to ratchet in. What do we need to do for, maybe we improve the fill window. Maybe we need to modify and tweak the delivery rates so that we're not bursting open like a fire hose into a tank. It only turns on every 15 minutes every 6 hours. And make sure we're trying to do what we can to get the water spread out to as many people as we can and deliver it as evenly as we can at night. So.
I like something that, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Megan Bradley, I'm the general manager for Bridgestone, but I'm gonna follow up on Ryan's question. So, I'm understanding most of what you're saying, not being clear. But, from a procedural standpoint, it would be really helpful to the districts to understand specifically what that mechanism of communication looks like, what the timing is. Because the last thing I think we would wanna do is get ourselves in a position where we're inadvertently not complying with the rule. When I think everyone in this room really has a desire to help you meet your guidelines and help you meet your conversion, but if we don't know how to get you the information that you need to justify that we're doing our part, that puts us in kind of an uncomfortable position. So I would urge you all to think about how you can help us help you.
Thank you, that's
You're welcome.
best comment. Yeah, I think that's exactly the purpose of this forum. We want to reach out to you to have this communication and to establish that mechanism you mentioned. How do we communicate better to prevent those issues Amber presented earlier? And you all saw that chart of you all know your status, right? You are in yellow or you're in red category. We are not blaming you, we're not accusing you of any wrongdoing. We just want to know if there's anything we can talk about to help you or to help us to resolve that. And to answer Ryan, your question, I want to know what I want daily communication with you. But we do want to talk to you to understand why you cannot use more surface water. And if you tell us that hydraulically you can only use, let's say, 75% of surface water, we got it, and we will put that note on our file. So when we see your monthly pumpage or daily pumpage is close to 75, we say, we are doing what we can do. But if you 75 to 45, that's when you will get a call from us and say, what happened? Can we help?
You know, what I was gonna say, I wanted to highlight what you just said, Amber. We're all in this together. And I've always viewed it as a partnership. Been a little rough here lately, but I've always viewed it as a partnership. I still do. And we all are, this is all of our money. We're building this system out. We want it to work. We want it to succeed. We want to do everything we can to help it.
Excuse me. One hand there.
Tony Ramsey, I'm with the Munch 11. And as I'm reading this and trying to digest, one of the thing that comes to mind, this year, as written, takes a lot of the responsibility of the fund and adds a layer of bureaucracy, with the exception of, like, emergencies. Right, so where there's, for instance, current capital projects, within the respective funds, if now we're mandated at 98%, you know, if, for those funds that are using wells, right, as far as, expenditures, that creates some level of issues.
Yeah, I think opening up to me, opening up the dialogue of, hey, I've got a capital project, I need to take my system down. I know there's, at least, it may be back online, but I know there's one water plant that normally takes surface water from us that couldn't, and they've got other water plants that aren't connected. And so they're using 100% groundwater right now. They're shown as red on that, but it's a red with an asterisk. I know why they're offline. And so that's just the dialogue. And I do think, when Jared and I were talking about this earlier, you know, figuring out, here's a streamlined communication way that we wanna make sure that you've got something that hits, here's a standard email that we'll come up with that is, here, this gets to Infomark, so you don't have to know, here's the one person to call. We'll get something out, I think that has, it goes to a whole group of people that see it, that the authority sees it, the Infomark sees it. On the program side, I can sit there and put in, okay, this is what's going on, so we can map out and plan for what do we still need to do. So I think coming up with those and just, we wanna try to make it easy and not overly burdensome, and just make sure, let's just talk through, okay, I'm taking a plant offline, may have to use my wells, it's gonna be 6 months long, and then I'll be back on. So.
And I also want to make it very clear to the audience tonight that we are not mandate 98%. 98% is a goal we set. We hope you can all use 98% because that's from statistically, we see the data that's possible. But as earlier the question raised that we can only do 97% or whatever, talk to us. That's what we're asking tonight. Let's have this communication. Let's understand, and if any particular mud, their mechanical issues, or their well condition, that's not allow them to reach 98, that's fine. We just need to know why. Oh, okay. Two more hands.
Sorry.
Please.
I'm Rick Harmon with Cypress Creek Utility District. My question, I mean, first of all, thank y'all for having this meeting. It's been very informative. But you told us what we can do. My question is basically to the board, what are you gonna do? You know we're gonna fail at 2029. So that disincentive fee is probably gonna hit us. That is adding to my usually water bill, that's gonna be $120. What are you doing for us to prevent that? I know you're behind, I know COVID, I know all this other stuff, but I've not seen or heard a lot what the board is doing trying to get us there. So that may be a point of communication from you guys to get to us. This is what we've done. You know, you're wanting to hear from us, but we gotta hear from you what you're doing to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm not gonna answer that question because the board members are here. I'll let them answer that question. Since your question is with the board. I see another I saw one more hand earlier. Yes, please.
Yeah, Jillian, also with Cypress Creek Utility District. I was reading through the article and it made sense. It's, you know, it makes sense, but my question is more the enforcement. You know, the what if we tell you we're gonna use 98% and we use 70. There wasn't really anything here unless I missed it in the previous, because I came in here late, I'm sorry. Just the enforcement, but overall, I see the goal. You know, I do agree everybody should use surface water, right? I mean, it's kind of the subsidence is real, you know, it's happening. So, so thank you for putting this on together for us, but yeah, just wondering about enforcement. Thank you.
Yeah, no, your reading is correct. As of now, the rate order does not contain a enforcement or penalty clause. And that's what actually the board to implement or revise the rate order to establish a new class of rate. But we have a lot of comments from the board, so that action is paused. Did I use that word? Yeah. So, again, that's the purpose of this two-way communication. We want to hear from you. Okay, for the sake of time, I'll move to the next and the final phase of our meeting. I would say that this forum will not happen without board support, and I appreciate all the board members appeared today. Without your support, this will not happen. This also shows board member cares about our customer and our MUD members. So I'll leave the rest of the time to the board members who care to make any comments, or if you don't want to, it's not obligation.
I'll start. So as many of you know, I took my place on the board about 24.5 years ago. So I've been through a lot. And my first experience with MUD directors, I'm just gonna be honest, was not great. And Jerry Holman was one of the first ones that reached out to me. And through his assistance, I've gotten to really appreciate what the MUD directors do for their communities and for our community as a whole. It was a rough start. There was a legal action. It was nasty. But please be assured that I talk with Jerry at least once a month before the board meeting, so he can give me his perspective. And we can address items that are coming before the board. I've just recently started having monthly meetings with Director Ramsey as the president of the board, so we can discuss, and we don't always agree, but we get together and we have a meeting. We're trying to build some sort of sense of unity where we can. We've got a lot of difference of opinion on things, but we're trying to do our best to make sure that we're communicating. I would ask that as MUD directors, engineers, operators, that you communicate with us. Just as Amber's been asking, as Jerry's been suggesting, that the more we get input from you, then the more we can share back what we're doing. I'll take a second to minimally answer the question about what are we doing for you for that disincentive fee. There are ideas about purchasing water credits from the subsidence district. We have some funds that are available to the board that we're trying to figure out what would be a really good use for these when we really can't put the money towards construction because we're throttled by all these, like property acquisition. There's so many processes and supply chain stuff that we really can't spend that money right now to increase the amount of water that we're bringing in from our water source. But there may be other uses for that money. And things like conversion credits from the subsidence district, education credits, credits that we can buy from some other sources. We're looking to try to use that vehicle maybe as an alternative, but the board has to agree. So that's just one idea about what we can do to help try to avoid any penalties from the disincentive fee. Again, I just wanted to make that statement. Please communicate with the board staff, communicate with me, my emails on the website. Talk to Jerry. Jerry has one of my ears, okay? And I'd be happy to share your concerns that way.
Which board member are you? For a lot of us, we just hear your voices.
My name is Joe Jones. No, my name is Kelly Fessler. I'm a director for District 5, which is basically out towards Atascocita and points north of Cypress Creek.
Thank you.
He does have a sense of humor.
We have a question.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, we have a reclaimed water system, so we're, I think, about 1 million gallons a month. Does that come in anybody for credits or anything like that?
This is a great tee up. This is another potential solution. So anybody that's out there, there is a, you wanna talk about the reuse program? I mean, I think we're, yes, but it does help. So that does count towards alternative water. But the authority actually has a program to try and incentivize folks to come up with other alternative water sources. So if you all have, and there's some MUDs here that have implemented some pretty cool things, and between the authority, there are programs that the authority offers for you all, that if you wanted to implement a reclaimed water, that up to 100% of the construction costs can eventually come back to you all based upon that water usage. And that reclaimed water usage counts towards our conversion. So if anybody's interested in implementing a reuse project that would decrease either your groundwater pumpage, or if it makes some of the additional surface water available to other folks, you know, that's something that the authority does implement. So if you have a well that irrigates your common areas, you know, it sounds like a perfect opportunity that you could do something at your wastewater plant and come up with a reuse system, and that would count towards alternate water.
And there is a video on our website that you can go to our website and click on that video and tell you all about the reuse program.
Hi, I'm Melissa Rao, District 3. I just want to say thank you, Amber, for the presentation, and I'm excited to see all you directors and operators out here. It's been great to have this full house. I'm always saying, you know, communication, it's important in your personal life, it's important in your business life, communication. So I'm not for penalty fee, but there are, you know, several MUDs that I think sounds like that are using what they should. So I hope tonight was great for you guys, and yeah, just let us know if, hey, we got this project, or here's what we're not, and you know, then we'll take you out of the red or whatever, you know. So yes, sir.
What area of the district do you represent?
I'm around Jersey Village, Eldridge, 1960, over to Willowbrook. A lot of it is south of 1960. I'm a little bit, that's where mostly 61 is. And then, like Lakewood Forest, that area, that's now in District 2, so I'm south of that. Little past Willowbrook, mine's a triangle.
Okay.
And there are maps online that pretty clearly show all the different district lines.
And one last thing also, a lot of things that June said in wrap up, I was gonna say those things, so if you're in the yellow or the red, you know, just communicate with us. So thank you all for coming.
Hi, I'm David Barker. I'm in District 2. So my district runs from along 2920 primarily, all the way from Waller County to 249, and then down on the east side of 249, all the way down into Champions. So it's a big, huge hockey stick system. A good portion of my district is undeveloped at this point, but that's quickly ending. As I'm looking at what's going on, and I'm thinking within 3 years, there'll be no available land for development in Harris County. It's about full out there. They're building at a tremendous rate right now. So anyway, that's where I'm from. What I wanted to bring up is, a question for Amber is, how quickly, we only have monthly data, right? So talking with them every week doesn't do us any good. But talking with them, giving them an update every month, if we can, to every single district, and even if it means bringing in another people to staff for a while to do this, I think that's a worthwhile thing to consider.
Absolutely, getting reports out every month, that is definitely in the plan. I think in terms of the communications, so for those of you who haven't implemented the AMI system or aren't familiar with it, the AMI system actually has data down to about 15-minute increments, and then it stores it all up, and then it eventually sticks it up in the cloud, and you can see all of this data. And then if there's a storm and cell signal isn't working, it stores it locally, and then once it has cell signal again, it sticks it back on the cloud. And so we've got, I'd say probably most of the people in here, your wells, most of the wells are in the system. So the first phase of AMI went after all of the larger wells, but not every well. If you hadn't operated your well in a long time, it was a backup well, or we barely ever operated it, you know, it's something that hey, you're gonna eventually decommission, it didn't get an AMI meter. We are moving to every single well will have an AMI meter, and that's kind of the phase 2 is capturing the next priority wells. So I can actually see on the groundwater side, I can actually see anybody who's in AMI, I can get in there and see to a 15-minute increment of what's going on. But what we don't have is surface water in that platform. For the operators out there and the folks that are more tech savvy, so the data for surface water for us, we actually go out, we have it in SCADA, but SCADA has its own limitations on reading things at times. And so Infomark and the team once a week goes out and reads the totalizer reading on the meters that are out there. And so once a week we have then here's how much is on the groundwater and here's how much is on the surface water to compare them to each other. So that's about once a week that we would be able to coordinate on, hey, we're seeing some things. It takes some effort to do that, but that's about what we would be able to do right now. And then long term, once everything's in the system and all of the surface water is in with the AMI and it's all in one place, we can give you all access to that. We can see it all in one place. You can pull data out. I figured out my own personal house usage, what my GPCD is at my house, how low could I get my water usage at my house. So you can do all of that for your data that we'll give you access to.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming, obviously. This has been really great, because I honestly came here pretty pessimistic to be 5 people. I'm so glad to see that that's not the case. And I'd like to thank Jerry. Jerry and I haven't always gotten along, but I very much appreciate your presentation today. I appreciate your time. And then finally, I kind of just say another way, which he said all along, we're in the third phase. So we started off way before I was involved in 98 to 2010, where we were revenue short. We didn't have any money to even start a system. So that's where all the fees got set up and all that stuff. Then we went into a undersupply situation which is where we just got out of, maybe 8 months ago. And now we have all the water we need, but we're on the conversion part of this problem. So just to sum it up, that's the 3 steps, and we're now in, we need maximum conversion. And that's where we're sitting. And anyway, yes, once again, thanks everybody, appreciate it.
Yeah, everything's pretty well said, except for one area. I too want to echo, thank you for showing up. I know this is a big inconvenience for most of you, even if you were told to be here, but we really appreciate that, because lots of new faces out there, that's always a good thing. I thank June, Amber, and Jerry, and echo David's comments there. I'm gonna mention something else, just because we've got so many new people here that may not have been listening to every word we say at these board meetings over the last 3 or 4 years. We have been doing a lot of things outside of just the construction schedules and trying to get y'all hooked up as best and as fast as we can. We haven't canceled anything, or or even slowed things down to our ability, at least. We've been slowed down by COVID and some of the other things that Phil heard talked about today, but we as a board have not intentionally slowed anything down. There's another aspect of this, and that's how do we pay for it all? And we've been talking about this now for over a year. We had a formal rate study done, what was that, June, about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe 6. We had a formal rate study done, a national firm and everything. We've had informal ones done by some of our financial advisors, and I'm still amazed that many, almost none of the ratepayers are aware of this. And what I have found is that a lot of MUD directors are still not aware of this, is that we have saved ratepayers about $250, $300 million over the past 3.5 years or so. That's a good thing, but people don't recognize that because the water bills are kind of manageable compared to what they were in that drought year about 4 or 5 years ago, if you remember that. We did that in a variety of ways. Some things we've refinanced some debt. In some cases, we had cash that was sitting in accounts that was not earning interest. We've corrected all of those kinds of problems. So we're looking at the economic side of it as well as just the pure construction side. That's all been good so far as we've found things. We've taken care of them as best as possible. However, the rate decrease that we enacted about 3 years ago, if y'all remember, we went from about $5 a thousand down to about $3 a thousand. The way we were able to do that pile of money is running out. And if we do not get regulatory relief, and all the stuff Amber said and the things June has said and the rate studies were based on, they're all based on us not getting any regulatory relief. We've been trying to get regulatory relief for 4 years too. We've been spectacularly unsuccessful in getting that so far. There's a lot of different ways that's been attempted. But if we don't get regulatory relief, we are looking at $11, $12 a thousand in about 8 or 9 years tops. And the way the financing is structured, if we don't get regulatory relief very quickly, i.e. the next session of the legislature, maybe a little longer than that, then what happens is we pile on so much bond debt that basically we can't get out from under it for 25 or 30 years. And so one of the strategies is to try to stretch out what the Harris-Galveston mandates are and to have a regulatory pause, whatever we want to call it, to where we get a breather of perhaps 10, 15, 20 years while we pay off some of the debt that's already been incurred, which is on the order of 2.5 or 3 billion, before we take on an extra 3 or 4 billion. If we end up getting saddled with $7 billion in debt, there's no way to get out from under the $10 or $12 per thousand water costs, just from us, not even adding in y'all's cost. The thing that does, there have been some studies done nationwide, when you get up around $8 or $10 a thousand, people stop watering their yard. That's about half of the water use. If they stop watering their yard and your rates are based on them watering their yard, so you're selling half as much water, what happens to the rates? It goes to 20. So then you're all of a sudden, in just a matter of 3 or 4 years, you're facing $20, At that point, people don't even necessarily take showers every day. And so what I'm saying this for is that, yeah, we need help with connections and management of the tank heights. Oh, we didn't talk about tank heights. Maybe that can be in one of the first communications. That Jerry talked about is switches, and Amber's got a real good explanation about that. That if you optimize the position of those switches, you can actually end up using more surface water than groundwater, but won't go into that now. But you can also help on the regulatory side, because fundamentally, we don't have a shortage of water here. We have a regulatory problem that has just gotten out of control cost-wise. And if any opportunity you have, if you happen to meet with one of your representatives, or if you know somebody on Harris Galveston or whoever, that you could help us try to get regulatory relief, that will save your ratepayers more than anything we've talked about today. It's just an enormous pile of cash that we're looking to try to run pipelines all the way to Waller in the next 9 years. I mean, it's pretty crazy, really.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So keep that in mind. We are absolutely doing everything we can to speed the construction, but we're also doing some of these things that haven't borne fruit yet, like trying to work the regulatory side, and the financing and all those things. So again, thank y'all very, very much, and great presentation.
And I think I'm neglected to thank Jerry, forget Steve, so thanks, Jerry.
Well, this is the end of the program. I want again, thank you, every one of you, spent your evening with us. Without you, we would not be able to do anything. You are our customers. You are our retailers. You are our bosses. So we want to hear from you. We want that communication with you. Thank you very much.